Service of the NTA. We now bring you a special broadcast by the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. President, sir.
Dear Nigerians, finally we have reached the eve of the rescheduled first round of this year's general elections. Tomorrow, the polls open. Tomorrow, we affirm that Nigeria stands as a democracy and that no worldly hand can deter us from this wise and fitting path we have chosen for ourselves. While democracy is the most beneficial way to select a nation's leaders, it is far from the easiest thing to achieve and maintain. It requires a combination of patience, tolerance, compassion, diligence, wisdom, and hope. These traits exist in us, the Nigerian people. Because of who we are, democracy has the chance to flourish in this land. Thus, I commend all of you for your patience and peaceful conduct so far during this electoral season, and especially during this intervening week following the postponement of the February 16th elections. Many were worried and thought the worst might happen. You proved them wrong by showing that you are a great people with an abiding love for peace, democracy, and the unity of our country. According to the daily INEC public briefings given this week, the Electoral Commission says it is ready and fully prepared to conduct the election in a free, fair, and transparent manner. I believe INEC realizes the profound and weighty duty that rests upon it. We must cast aside doubt and have faith that INEC will rise to the occasion. We must believe and encourage INEC to fulfill and honor this responsibility it owes to our country. As you are present, I hereby ask all Nigerians with voting cards to participate in defining the future of our nation by exercising your democratic rights tomorrow. I urge you to go out and vote. I say this because elections are the cornerstone of representative governance, and voting constitutes the highest and best expression of the sovereign will of the people to choose the government that best represents them. It is only upon the freely expressed will of the people that government truly dedicated to the welfare, rights, and interests of the people can be founded. Do not allow anyone to discourage you from the exercise of your rights as citizens and voters tomorrow. To vote means that you believe in Nigeria and the excellent things the future holds for this nation and its people. No matter your political leanings, we all believe in Nigeria, in the noble principles for which it stands, and in the values we strive for our beloved nation to uphold. All who are able must vote so that we may better perfect this democracy and continue to build the greater nation we seek. Do not be afraid of rumors of violence and unrest. Our security agencies have worked diligently to ensure that adequate security measures are in place. You will be able to vote in an atmosphere of openness and peace, devoid of fear from threat or intimidation. International and domestic monitors and observers are assured of their safety and freedom of movement needed to perform their important functions. As we thank domestic monitors and observers for their contributions to our democracy, we also thank the international groups for the friendship and concern they have demonstrated to our nation. We appreciate their efforts in encouraging us to further entrench and strengthen our democracy. Tomorrow is an encounter with history in which you, the people, shall affirm your collective belief in our national greatness and in our future. I ask that you embrace and hold on to the importance of the moment soon to be upon us. Honor your civic duty as voters by going to the polls tomorrow to vote for the government of your choice, for the government that will lead Nigeria towards its finest destiny. As citizens, there is no greater duty than this and no greater honor. Tomorrow, I know you will once again make Nigeria proud of its people. May God bless our democracy and forever bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
For the first time, security is deployed by name and telephone numbers.
INEC declares readiness to open polls for Saturday's election.
National Union of Road Transport Workers begins implementation of first slash for traveling voters.
Inhuman treatment of Nigerian citizens abroad will not be tolerated.
Be rest assured that the Buhari administration will deal thoroughly with every case on its own merit.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we take situation reports and analysis of the rescheduled elections taking place tomorrow.
It's election eve for the rescheduled presidential and national assembly elections, and across the nation, INEC and other interest groups, especially the civil society and indeed Nigerians, are putting finishing touches to the historic event.
Yes, Kirian, recall that INEC met late last Friday and reviewed its operations for the elections that were supposed to have kicked off on the 16th of February. But as it turned out, the elections that they hold on the 16th and had to be rescheduled for this Saturday, that is to say the 23rd of February. The chief reason that INEC cited was logistic and operational challenge.
All right, and of course, the explanation given by INEC reactions through the rescheduled elections from various sections of the country, with people expressing their disappointment as the news came to Nigerians about 6 hours to the commencement of the exercise.
And Kirian, certainly if the elections hold as planned, that's this Saturday, it will be historic in several ways. As we have indicated on Good Morning Nigeria, this, of course, will mark the 20th anniversary of Nigeria's uninterrupted democracy.
Now, Nigerians will once again go to the polls this Saturday to elect a president and 469 members of the National Assembly that will pilot the affairs of the country in the next 4 years. Well, there's certainly no doubt about that, Kinsley, especially if you consider the interest shown by all classes of people, particularly the youth, since the start of electioneering activities months ago, which ended Thursday, 12 midnight, the deadline for electioneering campaigns.
That is to say, the deadline for the campaigns for the presidential and national assembly elections taking place tomorrow. Now, according to INEC, there are more than 84 million registered voters. But of that number, just some 72.7 million are expected to participate in the elections taking place tomorrow. And Kieran?
Yeah, of course, since the postponement, INEC has been briefing Nigerians and international observers on progress report ahead of the election on Saturday.
Well, Good Morning Nigeria has, since the beginning of this week, been counting down to E-Day. And today, of course, we shall be having another set of guests, including INEC officials, to provide an update on the final preparations for the elections that are due to begin tomorrow.
And indeed, there are many questions to ask. Is INEC now finally prepared for Saturday's elections? Have the logistics and operational challenges that led to the rescheduling of the election been taken care of? What are the expectations of Nigerians and the international community? Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you as usual on the Africa's largest TV network, the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian in also welcoming you to the program, in the course of which we shall bring you our complimentary segments. And these include newspaper review, business post foreign, and others. But first, let's take the news highlights by Comfort Amodo. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. Here is the morning news. And President Muhammadu Buhari has advised Nigerians of voting age not to allow anyone to discourage them from exercising their rights as citizens and voters in tomorrow's general elections. He gave the advice in a nationwide broadcast ahead of the general elections. He said to vote means that one believes in Nigeria and the excellent things the future holds for the nation and its people. The president said no matter the political leanings, everybody believes in Nigeria, in the noble principles for which it stands and in the values the citizens strive for our beloved nation to uphold.
As you are present, I hereby ask all Nigerians with voting cards to participate in defining the future of our nation by exercising your democratic rights tomorrow. I urge you to go out and vote. I say this because elections are the cornerstone of representative governance, and voting constitutes the highest and best expression of the sovereign will of the people to choose the government that best represents them.
And 72.7 million Nigerians to decide the fate of candidates for the 2019 elections, as INEC declares its readiness to open the polls at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu gave the assurance during the daily press briefing by the Commission in Abuja.
What is very interesting about the 2019 general elections in relation to security deployment is that for the first time, security is deployed by name and telephone numbers. 19 states are fully deployed to the local governments. All other states will complete deployment today.
And passengers traveling for election have started enjoying 50% reduction in transport fare, a subsidy by National Union of Road Transport Workers to cushion the effects of double spending as a result of the rescheduled elections.
The president of the union collected the voters card and confirmed that it is being registered in Kano and I'm going for voting in Kano. I'm paying 1,500 naira.
As against how much?
As against 3,000.
I pay 2,050 naira, 2,550 naira.
As against how much?
4,550.
Oh, where are you?
Because of the election, so I want to vote.
Okay. Do you have your PVC?
Yeah, it's with me.
Meanwhile, the Federal Road Safety Corps has deployed 19,000 personnel to parts of the country in preparation for the general election starting this Saturday. The Corps Marshal Boboyi Oyemi confirmed this at a media briefing on the level of the Corps preparedness.
All the deputy commercials have been moved to the various districts geopolitical zone, and the assistant commercials have been moved to the states to ensure that we give maximum support. This is a national responsibility.
Welfare of INEC ad hoc staff security arrangements and the need to shun all forms of political violence and thuggery at any level were top on the agenda of the Election Analysis Center's briefing ahead of the rescheduled elections.
The challenge we are facing in these elections is not something that is new in the history of the country, but our findings have shown that the way they have instrumentalized fake news and disinformation, that is what is affecting what is happening on ground.
We have to point out also that there is some element of worry nationwide about whether elections will hold or not, particularly as we consider the enormous amount of tax before the Electoral Commission. Nonetheless, we believe and we hope that the INEC will be able to conduct a hitch-free elections on election day.
And as international donor agencies continue to render assistance to victims of Boko Haram in the northeast, the King Salman Humanitarian Agency of Saudi Arabia has weighed in with a donation of food items worth 3 billion naira. The leader of the Saudi delegation says the Saudi Crown Prince is touched by the plight of the IDPs.
The two countries have continued to collaborate in various areas of mutual benefit and interest, including military relationship.
We are one country, one brother. All Nigerian people, one brother.
I want to put it on record that the support from the King Salman Humanitarian and Relief Organization will inshallah be judiciously utilized for the common good of our people.
Now, inhuman treatment of Nigerian citizens abroad will not be tolerated by the Nigerian government. The senior special assistant to the president on diaspora matters, Abike Dabiri Erewa, stated this while briefing the media in response to the recent deportation of some Nigerians from Ghana.
thorough investigations are going on. Each case will be treated on its own merit. If indeed you are Mr. A, you committed a crime, you'll have to pay for it. But if you are Mr. A, you did not commit a crime, you are assumed to have, and you're in humane treatment, be assured that the Nigerian government will look into every case on its own merit. But right now, the Nigerian ambassador is meeting with all the relevant bodies, starting with the Comptroller General of Immigration, to explain what really happened. So let's stay calm, obey the laws of wherever we find ourselves, and be rest assured that the Buhari administration will deal thoroughly with every case on its own merit.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian High Commissioner to Ghana, Ambassador Michael Abikoye, has presented a letter of protest to consultation to the Ghanaian government over what he described as inhuman treatment of Nigerians by the country's immigration service by deportation of 723 Nigerians in less than 1 year.
ECOWAS Protocols Convention is so clear about this. And the nationals of ECOWAS country does not even talk in terms of resident permits as they live peacefully with that area. The Ghana Immigration Service has issues warning to all landlords that they should insist that they must have, all foreigners must have resident permits and legal stay before they can give them houses.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues in a moment with Kinsley and Kieran.
So, how do I look, guys?
Aha! I see what's wrong.
What?
The wall doesn't match your elegance.
Then we must do something about it right away.
At Royal Ceramics, we offer you a wide range of beautiful wall and floor tiles designed specially to fit your lifestyle.
So, what do you guys think?
Thank goodness we changed to Royal Ceramic tiles.
I agree.
Like mother, like daughter.
Royal Ceramics, finish in style.
Team huddle. But we lost. Don't be tired, guys. This isn't a loss. It's a practice for winning.
Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her child growing up. But I know as he learns to lead, he'll face even more dirt, germs, and risk of illness.
That's why in changing seasons, you need strong Dettol protection. Because Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Getting around heartburn and indigestion can be tricky if you eat too much. Eat food that is too spicy or greasy, or lie down after eating. Heartburn and indigestion could always be around the corner. When they come, be prepared with Gaviscon Double Action. It works within 3 minutes and lasts up to 8 hours. Gaviscon Double Action. Many causes, one solution.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA network service. Now let's turn to business. Key industry players advocate policy change to revitalize textile industry in Nigeria. Let's now join Kunle Adeyeye for details.
As at 2015, the world market for textiles made from organically grown cotton was worth over $5 billion. Out of this figure, Nigeria's textile industry in 2016 was estimated to worth over 4.7 billion naira. Disturbing is the amount of textiles imported and smuggled into the country, which is estimated at $1.2 billion annually. To address these challenges, the Bankers Committee at its last meeting have advocated the need for policy change and a new framework to give birth to growth of the local textile industries so as to boost internally generated revenue and address issues of bottlenecks in access to finance for developing micro, small, and medium enterprises. The committee says modalities have been put in place to protect this caliber of businesses in the country so as to create the incentives for talented Nigerians going into entrepreneurships.
Obviously, there is need for some policy changes and framework if you want the local textile industry to start again.
In another development, the Nigeria Customs Service says it will step up its fight against smuggling this year to improve on its revenue generation. Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service immediately emphasized that the service is on course to check the activities of smugglers, having received support from the federal government.
One of our biggest challenges with regards to raising revenue is smuggling. If we can reduce smuggling to the barest minimum, I bet you that our revenue will skyrocket. So we are going to redouble our effort in fighting smuggling this year.
And turning to the capital market, where investors on the fourth day of the week approached stocks with caution. It led to a slowdown in activities to see markets all-share index depreciate by 0.14% to close at 32,568.5 basis points. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you, Kunle, for the update on business. Next for us on the program is a review of the papers we have with us this morning.
And we're glad to have Bayo Atoyebi here in the studio for a review of the newspapers on an election eve. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kiran. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Nigerians are set for election tomorrow.
Exactly, and let's see what the papers are saying. We have, Kinsley, we have 4 newspapers here.
Yeah, that's right. I have the new Telegraph as well as Daily Sun.
All right, the Nigerian Pilot here and the Daily Trust. Okay.
All right. Let's begin with you, Kira. Well, I mean, the lead stories on the front pages of the papers are all focused on the elections. Let me just take those stories on the front page of the Daily Sun, beginning with the earpiece. That's the one beside the nameplate. Controversy trails appeal court ruling on Zamfara APC candidates. That's page 4. That's a running story. 24 hours to elections. That's the kicker for the lead. I've no reason to quit, says Yakubu. Yakubu, of course, is the INEC chairman. Now, there are 2 riders as Buhari Atiku fight for 73 million votes tomorrow, actually 72.7 million votes tomorrow. Gawan, Joda, Kolade, Anya, and others caution INEC and politicians. These are senior citizens. Gawan, former head of state, at Joda, one of the super palmsecs of the past, Christopher Kolade, and Anya, senior citizens. And right below the photographs there, you have, we must have faith in INEC. That's according to President Buhari, and promises security for voters. Details can be found on page 40. Many injured, vehicles destroyed as PDP APC members clash in Kano. And I've not resigned, says Oshibajo. Details can be found on page 8.
All right, let's turn to the Nigerian Pilot this morning. And below the nameplate, we have Amnesty Office keeps mum over multi-billion naira vocational center looting. It's on page 12 of the Nigerian Pilot. And then beside that story, we have 5 dead, scores injured as Kwankwaso Jibrin supporters clash in Kano. Page 7 captured details of that. Now the lead story, 72 million Nigerians or thereabouts to decide Buhari Atiku's fate. That's INEC with 4 riders. Says 11.3 million uncollected PVCs in CBN's vault. Now that election materials have been fully deployed. In seats commission doing the needful to deliver on its mandate. I am not under pressure to resign. That's Yakubu, the INEC chairman. Now below the photograph there, we have some other striking stories here. News of my resignation, fake, says Shebajo. That's below the photograph. Just below the photograph, yes, news of my resignation, fake, says Oshimbajo. It's on page 10. Another story is there at the bottom of the Nigerian Pilot. INEC says it stands on court rulings on Rivers Zamfara APC crisis on page 5. Buhari, EFCC alert Nigerians on circulation of fake dollars. And Buhari asks historians to document 16 years of PDP's mismanagement. Can PDP demand convincing explanations on alleged 130 Kajuru killings? That's to page 6. Again, federal government closes borders. It gives visa-free waiver to foreign observers. It's on page 13. Let's now turn to Bayo for further analysis.
Yes, the nation is set for the general election tomorrow, and the chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission held his 4th daily briefing yesterday, and he said 72,775,585 persons, constituting 86.3% of registered voters, have collected their PVC and will be participating in the elections tomorrow. However, 11,228,582 PVCs are to be kept in the vaults of the central bank. Those are the PVCs that were not collected. INEC gave an update on his preparation. He said, as at time of his briefing, he said 19 states had been deployed, and by end of yesterday, all states are required to have been deployed, except Bayelsa. Bayelsa will be deploying from Yenegua this morning. And he says also that registration catchment at all local governments, that is 774 local governments around the country, and area councils are all to be operational by 9 a.m. today. There will be 119,973 polling units. So all political parties have your agents at all polling units. At the end of the election, collect all the polling units results, tally it, and you have a transparent result of the election and await for INEC's confirmation. Meanwhile, the INEC chairman also indicated that no resident electoral commissioner has been deployed. He also asserted that all electoral materials are safe. There will be a stamp behind every ballot paper on election day with the signature and date of the electoral officer. NYC members who are serving their nation as ad hoc staff will be provided mattresses from the NYC camps as well as security to protect them. Foreign observers who have been in the country, the Nigerian Immigration Service is facilitating their re-entry visas. Foreigners are not undermining the electoral process, and INEC has asserted is independent. INEC does not envisage another cancellation of the polls, and he said INEC had obeyed the Supreme Court judgment on Rivers, while the commission position on Zamfara remains unchanged. However, if you hear there is an editorial that says there is confusion about Zamfara, there was a court of appeal, Abuja division yesterday, that also overturned the decision of the Federal High Court of Abuja that had upheld INEC's position. Nobody is sure now what INEC position will be, whether it will change from that court's decision. Meanwhile, the INEC chairman was asked whether he will resign, and he said, I see no reason to contemplate resignation. We have a job to do for our country. My job is purely based on patriotism and love for the country. So the nation is set for elections
tomorrow.
Yeah, Kieran, just before we go, there was a writer from the late story of Daily Sun, which I read a while ago. It says, I have no reason to quit. That's Yakubu, Daily Sun. The writer is Gawan, Joda, Kolade, Anya, and others caution INEC and politicians. The story is on page 9 in greater detail. I just to take some excerpts from what the senior citizens wrote. By the way, the statement was endorsed by the following persons: Alhaji Ahmed Joda, Professor Akin Mabogunje, Dr. Christopher Kolade, and Shingo Wigwe, Professor George Obiozo, Alhaji Mohammed Hayatuddin, Professor Joe Iruku, Professor Anyam, Alhaji Ahmed Yayale, Chief Folake Sholanke, and Chief Frank Okoiso, as well as Chief Philip Asiodu and the Reverend Ladi Thompson. Now, this is part of what they wrote. No matter how dimmed the eyesight of the elders are, our ears can still hear the pitiful cry of our great and great-grandchildren braving desert treks and other equally hazardous routes to escape the pain that Nigerian life has become. So this is certainly not business as usual, and the trauma of the civil war we survived should be a warning flag across all spheres of leadership as we soak in all the attendant factors, including the toxic political culture of the present hour and the predatory tonality of the ongoing election processes. magnified by the fact that the country is still reeling from the shock of postponed elections, it has become imperative that we must speak up as elders. He also advises, the presidency that it is incumbent upon the president to take the charge, that's after the election, to articulate and implement a long-term vision which will make Nigeria a prosperous and globally competitive economy by 2040.
Yes, specifically even enjoy INEC must conduct a free, fair and credible election. Parties and candidates must conduct must be civil with restraint in words and in deeds and up to, during and after the election. Third, contending parties must regulate their behavior and the conduct of their followers. Participants are urged to accept final results. They even went to the extent of prescribing the conduct that should be after the elections. And in all, they said, all good persons of all tribes, tongue and creed to be calm and to work for the future of our nation. He says, let us march forward after a dark night, believing that dawn is a promise of God, the Almighty. We are eager for a united, peaceful, and prosperous Nigeria.
Yes, Bayo, I think what they did is a welcome development. But one thing to take home from all they have conceptualized and put together is, of course, to regulate the behaviors of key actors in all of this, because these are politicians. We have their record and trajectory, when it comes to election matters. So that's why it's very apt, for these elderly persons in Nigeria, to air their voice, with respect to the elections that will come up tomorrow.
Yes, like it is often said, elders cannot be there in the market square and the skull of an infant is crushed. And like it is said, the political actors are cutting down a huge Iroko tree in the Nigerian forest, and they as elders can foresee the peril that could come from that, the fall of that huge tree. And that is why they have sounded this sound of warning for all. And it is left for all political actors and all voters to abide by this so that we can have a peaceful election.
All right, let's return to the headline stories on today's national dailies. And I have a Daily Trust newspaper. Directly below the nameplate of a Daily Trust newspaper, we have a Kwankwasia rep, Jibril supporters clash, 5 killed. We told you that in other newspapers. Now, EFCC raises alarm over fake dollars circulating in Nigeria. It's on page 3. Gabal, Nigeria's dirty money blacklist strange. It's on page 17. And now the lead story on the Daily Trust says, as Nigeria decides tomorrow, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, Rivers lead in voter numbers. Exercise your democratic rights, Buhari tells Nigerians. So of course, if you go a little down on Daily Trust front page, you see a statistical display of the percentage of PVCs collected in different states of Nigeria. If you have the time to go through them, we'll be able to appreciate the percentage and the differentials, with respect to the states that have collected, the people that have collected their PVCs in different states of Nigeria. And below that, of course, we have other stories like that's at the bottom of Daily Trust. We have Appeal Court clears for our APC candidates. It's on page 4. U.S. closes missions in Abuja, Lagos for polls. Page 5. I can't remember my earnings as Chief of Army Staff, says Bamayi, on page 10.
All right. For the New Telegraph, the lead story is also on politics as well, of course, focusing on the number of registered voters who didn't collect their PVCs, together with the infographics there, state by state. But let's go above the nameplate of the New Telegraph. It says Nigerians spent 3.15 trillion naira on airtime in 2018, and you can see the monthly spend there. They're talking their money away in 2018. That's 3.15 trillion naira in 2018. That's for last year. I think the highest month would appear to be the month of December. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. 283.7 billion naira. That's what Nigerians spent on airtime, totaling 3.15 trillion naira in 2018. Federal government realized 298.01 billion naira VAT in the last quarter of 2018. That's what is also there on page 3. And below the nameplate, you have 3 headlines. Court orders Okocha's arrest over tax evasion. That's J.J. Okocha. That details can be found on page 37. That matter is subject is. Polls. Police will deal with ballot box snatchers. That's according to the Acting Inspector General of Police. Oshibajo's campaign train attacked in Kwara. That's page 3. And below the illustration of the number of uncollected PVCs, you also have the story coming out of Kano. Bayo, yes. Kano should be on the watch list, by the way, for tomorrow.
In fact, yesterday, Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo was on a door-to-door campaign in Kwara and in an area called Isalialuku. His convoy was shot at. In fact, some persons were said to have been injured. And that is the danger signal now. If you go back, the police, they have reported violence in the last days of the campaign in Anambra, in a place they call Ena Alumona, Nsuka. An AP supporter was killed.
That's in Enugu, Ihalumona?
Yes.
In Nsuka, yeah.
In Kwara, the campaign trail of Senator Lola Ashuru was attacked. One person was killed and several others were injured. A thug is supposed to be a violent criminal, and politicians are still using thugs. Leadership has identified some flashpoints in Ebonyi. They include Ikwo, Izi, Onitsha, Ishelu, Ohauku, Ohuazala, and Afikpo. In Kano, followers of Senator Rabi Musa Kwankwaso clashed yesterday with Honorable Abdulmumin Jibrin in Bebeji. 5 persons were killed, several houses were burned, and several vehicles were burned. Kwankwashia movement and Gwandujia followers have been waging war at each other's posters in Kano. Other areas of concern that the police must take keen interest in are Lagos, Oyo, Ogun, Kano, Benue, Kwara, Kaduna, Bauchi, Rivers, and Zamfara. Meanwhile, the police says that all policemen on election duty have been warned against indulging themselves before, during, and after election. DIG Amin Chibaraya, who is in charge of 7 states in Northwest, said police officers must abide by the ethics of their profession. Their role is to provide an enabling environment for voters to vote and return to their homes. He said specifically, we don't expect any incident of thuggery because thuggery is a crime and police are ready to arrest and deal with any such persons or the group. There are unusual problems, and these ones usually occur when voting is over and ballot papers are escorted from collating centers. Police is alert to stem any development that will destroy.
Right. It is quite regrettable that few days to the election, we're beginning to have some cantankerous situations in different parts of the country, and yet the election has not even taken place. So what happens after the election? Well, that will be for analysis a day after the election. For now, let's go to the editorial for today, which is also on the election. Let tomorrow's votes count. We were taking that from the Nigerian pilot. And just one paragraph before Bayer comes in. Once again, eligible voters in Nigeria will be heading back to the polls tomorrow for the all-important presidential elections, which were abruptly postponed last Saturday. Bayer, briefly.
Well, the editorial is still happening on a peaceful election. And it is not far-fetched because the paper is saying that voters are heading back to the polls, but they should also endeavor to put the postponement behind them. They say, God forbid if there is another postponement, but they say the reason for the previous postponement was certainly the uncoordinated activities of political actors. They say election is about our unity, it is about our democracy, and people should go there and think about the future of our children and ensure that every vote that is cast counts, and everybody should conduct themselves civilly. They said the fears of insecurity has been allayed, but it behoves on political actors to prevail on their supporters to maintain peace and security. And he says security men also should be neutral and should protect the voters. Above all, they charge that all, including political parties, candidates, voters, security men, media, foreign observers, and local observers, all of us should put our hands, join hands together and be committed to the ideals of democracy so that we can have a free, peaceful, and
credible election.
Credible election.
All right, Bayer, at this point, we'd like to thank you for your analysis today. And we are going to see you again on Monday after the election. Perhaps, well, if it's, Kingsley, you know, if all goes well, then by Monday we should be able to have the results. But by Monday,
the result will start
coming in.
In fact, I can almost guess that the result that will start trickling in are the states with the least population of voters. Ekiti, Bayelsa, and then up the ladder. At least if you look at the list of the small states with the least population, you have Ekiti, 666,000, Bayelsa, 769,000, FCT, 1,226,000, Kwara, 1.1 million, Yobe, 1.2. The big ones are Lagos, 5.5 million, Kano, 4.6, Kaduna, 3.7, Katsina, 3.1, and Rivers, 2.8. Those are the ones that will stray maybe to Tuesday and Wednesday.
What we should expect, I mean, if all goes well, let's put that if now. If all goes well, if all goes well tomorrow. No, if all goes well tomorrow, by this time next week, we're sure that all the results should be in. And by this time next week, you will be hearing defection from one party to another. You know, because everybody will tell you that, no, they want to align with the federal, depending on the outcome of the election. So that will be something that we have to watch out for. Bound, absolutely, Bayo. So, Kirian.
Yeah, Bayo, we'll see you on Monday. All right. It was still a Good Morning Nigeria. And, of course, we'll take a break now. When we return, we'll go to the issues for conversation for today's edition of the program. Stay with us.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba Ben and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA Standard Studio, ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency caution. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Mass Medical Mission MMM is offering free services on a wide range of medical issues. Take advantage of these offers, especially by availing yourself of the National Cancer Prevention Program NCPP. You can do so by coming for our Wellness Wednesday program at 31 Bode Thomas Street, Surulere, Lagos every Wednesday from 7 a.m. You also have the opportunity of seeing the specialist and getting expert opinion on any health issues that may have been bothering you. Are you preparing to get married to your sweetheart? Then we have a pre-marital health program that will help you ensure that you start your married life on a healthy footing. Very important health screening and counseling will be made available for you and your partner. You can avail yourself of this opportunity by attending our pre-wedding Wednesday program from 7 a.m. For inquiries, send a mail to info@pinkcruise.org or log on to www.pinkcruise.org or call 0805-633-4288. Mission Pink Cruise, taking wellness to all.
All right, welcome back. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. As we indicated today, we're taking situation reports with regard to the elections coming up tomorrow, plus analysis and matters arising from the seat reports. Now, let's take this first report from the Federal Capital Territory on the deployment of materials for the elections. And the report is put together by correspondent Ifeoma Ojinta.
I'm right at the
of the FCT INEC office, where all sensitive materials for the conduct of Saturday's elections have left the premises of the FCT INEC office to various area councils. And here with me supervising the conveying of the sensitive materials is the Resident Electoral Commissioner, INEC FCT.
Those who are going to work at our work staff will sleep at the camp, that is RAC camp. It has already been arranged, everything is in place, so by the grace of God, by today, tomorrow, they will sort it each unit by each unit, and each of their ad hoc staff will be ready to collect them, and by the grace of God, on Saturday, by 7 o'clock, they will be at the polling units, and election will start 8 o'clock.
Electoral officers of the 6 area councils in the FCT, some observers, journalists, as well as political party agents were on hand to witness the process.
As far as we're concerned, I think we are satisfied and we are okay with the level of preparation so far.
They're doing a wonderful job. I don't see any complications here. I don't see any irregularities. Everything is working as it should.
From what we have seen, I think everything is going smoothly without any problem.
Now, it may interest you to know that all these trucks conveying sensitive materials, mainly ballot papers and result sheets, were escorted by heavily armed police officers to their various destinations.
We just finished sorting them out. For municipal is ready now. We are moving to my LGA.
Okay.
Yes, to Caro office.
And we also have another report, and this time from Uyo, on the deployment of materials for Saturday's polls, as put together again by a former Abuja.
Thank you, studio. We are right now at the Central Bank of Nigeria here in Uyo, where the distribution of sensitive materials is going on. We have party representatives, we have civil society organizations, we have the election observers, and of course, a high presence of security on ground taking part in this exercise. And right now, I have with me the Resident Electoral Commissioner and my home state, Mike Ijini, who will tell us how the exercise is going on.
Well, it's been very fine. You all be witnesses to what we've been doing here. Anywhere from now, the vehicles are coming in, and we're going to be taking the far-flung places of the state. And we are very sure that very shortly, having regard to the kind of terrain that we have in Akwa Ibom and the road network, we are very sure that very soon materials will be in the respective local government. And that's what is going on right now. So it is work in progress. My last message, continuing message to our people here is that all of them should come out on Saturday, that we are providing equal opportunity, equal chance to all political parties and candidates in this election. This election is not about, it's about the people of Akwa Ibom State to make a choice of who they want to be their leaders at all levels. That's all our job needs to do. The process is what we're interested in here. And happily, we have ensured that all stakeholders, they validate every stage of what we have been doing so far. So far, so good. We are good here.
Okay, sir, how would you rate the security situation in Akwa Ibom State presently? There are some issues in the state eve of the school revolution.
I think that my attitude about the issue about security is that our focus should be those who are creating insecurity in Akwa Ibom State. And who are the people? They are the political elite. I am not aware that the Nigerian police has been recruiting thugs. No, it is the political elite who are recruiting thugs. Who were those who were responsible for the setting ablaze of 13 vehicles at Abuja? They are the political elite who have engaged thugs to do that. So all these security problems we are having in Akwa Ibom State are all traceable to the political elite, reprobate political elite.
All right, we still have another report this time from Kano with regard to the deployment of materials for tomorrow's election. Here is our correspondent Fatima Sanusi Karaye with a report.
As preparation for the presidential and National Assembly elections heightened, INEC in Kano is distributing sensitive materials to the 44 local government areas of the state. In compliance with the Memorandum of Understanding between INEC and NURTW, these vehicles are stationed to convey these sensitive materials to their various destinations. Here with me is the head of voter education and publicity.
We have said, yes, in front of Central Bakano, we have seen the vehicle line down there. They will enter, take a particular local government and left. So far, we have distributed these materials to the far local government areas of the state, like Dogwa, Rogo, Bebeja, and the rest. So I assure you, before the end of today, all the sensitive material will reach their local government areas.
This is the Independent National Electoral Commission, Kano office, and behind me are some of the security agents and election materials being moved into different locations across the state. This assurance by INEC, it is hoped that these sensitive materials will get to the 44 local governments of the state on time, and voting will be done on time.
Thank you very much, Fatima Sanusi Karaye, for that report on the distribution of election materials in Kano. Now, we've taken a number of reports already. We have guests with us in the studios to discuss this issue in greater detail. First, let's welcome Aliyu Bello. He's the Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Aliyu Bello, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay. Also with us in the studios, we had him last Friday, just on the eve of the shifted post. He's the first Public Relations Officer, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Frank Umba. Pleasure to have you with us again on the program.
Thank you.
Okay.
And still joining us this morning for the conversation is Mma Aldi. Mma Aldi is the General Secretary, Alliance for Credible Elections. You are welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And also from our Lagos Network Center is Dr. Afolabi Akyode. She's a chairperson, Transmission Monitoring Group. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Abiola Akyode Afolabi, it's nice to have you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure being here.
So we may well start by asking the INEC officer the first question, right? You know, exactly a week ago, we were on this platform, you know, where we have told our viewers that INEC is fully prepared for the 16th of February scheduled election, but that didn't hold. Today again, we are having another INEC official with us on the eve of the scheduled election. When it comes to materials, we have listened to some reports that showed that materials have moved and all of that. But I would like you to reconfirm this for the benefit of our viewers this morning. How prepared is INEC?
Thank you once again. I think the most important thing is said. The reports that came in have actually confirmed the state of preparedness by INEC to conduct the polls tomorrow. So on the 23rd, that is tomorrow, everything is set. The commission hits the ground running for the elections. It will definitely be a successful outing, because so far, so good. I can even add, so far, so excellent. Everything is on ground. Our officials are already out there, materials ready. Everyone is set for the elections.
Yeah, well, you've introduced some superlative adjectives, so far, so excellent. I was just wondering, the reports have talked about materials being moved to the appropriate locations.
Yes.
But earlier in the week, there were reports of the misallocation of sometimes sensitive materials. Result sheets for Lagos were found in some other location, some other state. Result sheets or some other sensitive materials not meant for Kaduna were found in Kaduna. There is a presumption that INEC would have taken care of some of those instances of misallocation. But just by any chance, tomorrow when the materials are opened and voters go to the polls and they get confronted with materials meant for another location being in their polling booth, maybe several distances or several miles away, what should happen?
I think those were some of the infractions that happened last week and affected the exercise. So by now, all of such have been corrected and everything is now ready, because over the week, what the Commission keep doing and doing it well was to ensure that every material that is due to go to a particular place is on that place in right quantities and quality. So those mix-ups that were experienced before have been sorted out.
I'm just saying, conditionally, if it turns out that voters get to the polls tomorrow and the result sheets are not the appropriate ones for that particular area, what should happen? Because voters, you can know the state of mind, you can guess the state of mind of a voter. So say, hey, listen, this was what happened last week. So what should happen? Advise the voters and also give an advisory to all other stakeholders in the process, just assuming it happens.
In the first place, let me insist that it will not happen. When it happens, it's not for the voters to now go out of their way to condemn the exercise. The officials that are managing the polls would act in accordance with the provisions and appropriately get all of this material that were not there to ensure that the polls succeeds. These other infractions of having materials out there in the wrong places have been sorted out. However, if in the event, like you said, something happened and one or two items got missing or are not in the right place, the officials that are manning the polls at that particular location, that is PU, will definitely call the supervisor. The supervision of the exercise is not from PU level, that is polling unit level, to state level or local government level. It is organized in such a way that every presiding officer reports to a supervisor who covers only 10 units. So there is effective supervision, and a timely response is put in place so that there is an urgent and quick response mechanism actually running through the system.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leo Bello, I'm not pushing this to the end, because our experience with the conduct of elections in the past shows that before voting starts, we saw that, for instance, in 2015 and some of the rerun elections that the country had conducted. Some persons will come and be demanding to see the result sheet, even before accreditation or voting begins, to be sure, to be certain that it's the authentic one. And that's why I'm asking this question, to say, look, assuming it turns out that some one or two sensitive materials are not available, will voting take place? Or will voting take place despite, the mix-up in the materials or non-availability of that material? Would there be supplementation? Would the election be postponed in that particular polling unit? Just to clarify it, so that the voter who goes to the polls tomorrow will have a sense of what to expect, so that nobody's taken by surprise.
Unless where it's absolutely impossible to make amend, it is not likely to have polls postponement, because in the first place, each of our officers, when he receives his materials, right from the time he is receiving the materials, he is expected to confirm content and ascertain whether the materials given to him are of the right quantity and quality. If, for a venture, something happened and he did not do the needful checks and he went to field, the supervisor is there. So I don't foresee a situation where, on account of mix-up, a polling unit will lose the opportunity to vote, because the supervisors will at all times be supervising at a very close marking to provide those materials. However, should something go wrong, which we don't expect anyway, appropriate actions will be taken to ensure the franchise of those in the polling unit is protected.
All right, Bello, really, Kingsley persisted, to get an answer different from what you've given earlier on, because invariably, in every election, not just in Nigeria, there are usually such problems that could arise in the process of election. First, it happened in the first trial, which failed last week. And this time around, we're envisaging that there's a possibility of such mix-ups. So that's why he wanted to know, what will you do? We know that usually we have rescheduled elections if there are such issues arising on election day. But we'll return to you for further clarification on that. But what you said that is very pertinent is the fact that you have effective supervision and you have a timely response to any discrepancies that may arise in the course of the election. So we will return to you. But now let's go to ACP Frank. In our reports, I hope you watched some of our reports this morning on the news segment of this program, where we recorded cantankerous situations in some states, Kano, for instance, where supporters of two parties had been fighting, deaths recorded, vehicles burnt down. The same story also occurred in Kwara State. That means that many states are volatile. Now, and the police is leading other security agencies that are deployed for this particular election. What is your strategy? Because already we can see a sign of a disruption of the election. What is the strategy?
I think we should not proceed on a very pessimistic tone. I don't agree with you. There are signs of disruption, but of course there are challenges. Policing worldwide is predicated on prevention of crimes, and when your prevention strategy for any reason fails, then you fall back on detection of crimes. And that's exactly what we've done, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Fundamentally, our deployment strategies are designed to ensure that all forms of electoral offenses, including thuggery, violence, ballot snatching, hate speeches, and all kind of impersonation and the rest of them, are tamed. However, where for any reason the prevention strategy fails and a crime is eventually committed or crimes are committed, we switch over to the next core duty or to the next core function, which is investigation, detection, apprehension, and prosecution of offenders. And that is fundamentally what is obtainable globally. You can call it international best practice if you want. And so, unfortunately, policing is like, it's analogous to the role of a keeper, a goalkeeper in football. I'm sorry again, Kinsley. I am throwing you back into football. No matter how good a keeper is, he keeps a clean slate, or there are in a big match, he has stopped 10 big shots. And then, for one reason or the other, 1 or 2 goals go in. What happened is that for the casual observer, the observer quickly forgets how many goals this wonderful keeper, this dutiful, diligent, and hard-working keeper has actually prevented from going in. And the focus turns instantly to the 1 or 2 goals that went in. And that's exactly what's happening here.
I'm sorry, Excuse me. I know, I just while you're on this, so I don't bring you back to it. Emmanuel Okala was Nigeria's top goalkeeper, and he was also keeping for Enugu Rangers. In 1978, he conceded 3 goals against Bendel Insurance in the FA Cup of that year, just for historical purposes. Please continue.
Those were offside
and Kingsley, you remember that Emmanuel is so celebrated.
Absolutely.
He's one of the best keepers we ever had. Yeah. He led Enugu Rangers to so many glorious outings, nationally, continentally.
Okay.
And that's the way I want us to look at this. If you look at how big and how large Nigeria is, you know how many states we've been able to maintain and kept intact from all forms of crisis and violence and crimes, and the number of crimes and criminalities we've been able to prevent and keep in check, you will appreciate us and understand that these cases that you've reported are also receiving adequate attention. And one thing I want to assure you and assure Nigerians is that the leadership of the police under IGP Mohammed Abubakar Adamu will not tolerate any form of impunity. Where we, for any reason, either pre or post-election violence we are not able to prevent them, if you go ahead and commit them, we will follow you up, we'll ensure you are arrested, we'll ensure you're investigated, and we'll ensure that you're diligently prosecuted.
SCP Frank Mba, I'd like us to be more specific this time around, because we're not even talking about just a pre or post, during, because tomorrow is the election day. And just 48 hours before the election day, we have had situations. VP's campaign train in Kwara State yesterday was attacked. So what gave such people the temerity to attack a VP's convoy? That means, of course, something has been planned. Now, we also talk about Kwankwasia Group versus Jubrin Group in Kano. People were killed. So now, if such happens tomorrow, that's why I'm asking about strategy for tomorrow, because, you cannot rule out the possibility of such things repeating itself on election day.
For us, tomorrow is like the 0 hour. And policing operation, the 0 hour, is that point where all your resources, human and material, are concentrated. And so, because of the concentration of your forces and the show of force on ground, you're able to reduce minimally, if not totally eliminate the chances of criminals taking up crimes or committing crimes at that point in time. Tomorrow is going to be different. And the good thing here is that we have fully deployed our men. For us, nothing have changed fundamentally, because the deployment we did last week, we retained them. We never called back our personnel, and they've been on ground from last week till now. The advantage of that is that for personnel on interstate deployment, they've had the additional advantage of understuding their environment. They have additional advantage of having known their locality. We call that local knowledge in policing palace. They have that advantage of also having settled down physically, emotionally. They've made friends. They've been able to develop contact and sources of intelligence. They've settled down even to the feeding pattern and sleeping pattern. And so they are even better prepared to actually deliver on their fundamental goals. So for us, nothing has changed in terms of our focus, in terms of our mandate, and in terms of our commitment to irrevocably providing a level playing field, a safe and conducive atmosphere for a credible and free election.
All right, SCP Frank Mba, thank you very much. Now, last week, on the eve of the shifted polls, there was a restriction on movement from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. For tomorrow, the 23rd of February, that we're now having a general elections, will there still be restriction on movement? And if so, what is the time delimited for this restriction?
Absolutely. The restriction on movement stands. And the restriction is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we've tried to explain this repeatedly, that the restriction of movement, there's a difference between a ban in movement and a restriction in movement. The difference is not just semantics. A restriction of movement simply implies that people who don't have any reason to move tomorrow should not move and will not be allowed to move. People on essential duties, doctors, medical personnel, fire service, security officials, accredited media personnel, not just any Dick and Harry that calls himself.
But you can't accredit all media personnel, because some of us are working in the studio and they not have accreditation for elections, but they have duties to perform in the studio. So how do we differentiate
This is where the discretionary powers of security personnel come in. And I expect that if you're actually a staff of NTA and you live somewhere within the town and you're coming to work, you should be able to explain yourself adequately. You should provide enough evidence empirically that indeed you are a staff of NTA and that you're on your way to work. Alternatively, if you know you cannot meet up those qualifications, then you leave your house earlier than before. It is just one day. And we must be ready to make what we call national sacrifices. These are things we do for the advancement of our national institution, our democracy, our liberty, our national development, and the rest of them. So we must be ready to make these sacrifices. And I tell people, if you also you live in one part of Abuja or one part of Lagos and you registered, your polling station is a couple of minutes away from your house, nobody is going to stop you. But you must be able to convince people on duty that you are going from X point to Y point for purposes of exercising your franchise. And secondly, we also pay higher attention to vehicular restriction, to vehicular movement, and the reasons are clear. We pay more attention to restriction on movement of vehicles because with vehicles, you can ferry arms, you can ferry stolen electoral materials, for example, or forged electoral materials. You can ferry thugs. But when people are walking from one point, maybe from their house to a polling unit, the worst case scenario is for security operatives on patrol to flag you down, pat you down. And once they pat you down and you don't have any offensive weapon or anything incriminating, they let you go. Okay. So essentially, Nigerians must understand that this is not punitive. It is purely an action designed to strengthen further our democracy. It's actually meant to enable them go out and cast their vote without any form of molestation, prevent criminals and hoodlums from taking over the street and hijacking the processes.
All right, Frank, SCP Frank, but thank you so much. You know, what you have said has been so self-explanatory, you know, the way you put it, you know, is very comprehensive and understandable. At this point, let's turn to the election observers. And I'd like to begin with Mma Aldi, who is the General Secretary of Alliance for Credible Elections in Nigeria. You've listened to Bello here of the INEC, and of course, ACP Frank Mba, with respect to tomorrow's election. What's your own assessment?
Okay, I'll start by saying that I align myself and our organization to the position of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. Also, we acknowledge the daily briefing by INEC Chairman, which is also in line with our recommendations and suggestions that INEC should brief Nigerians daily on their outlines of activities to ensure that there will be no other postponement and that we ensure that we have free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections. And we acknowledge the fact that they are on it and doing it. We also are supporting INEC and praying that INEC gets it right, because all hands must be on deck to ensure that INEC give us free, fair, and credible elections. And as the Assistant Director of Voter Education has stated, and from the report from the different states, even some of our coordinators in the states have also reported to us that INEC, for example, our states in Gombe, Kano, that INEC invited them to come and inspect the materials, which is also good because we didn't have it going forward last week, and now we have it in this week. It assures us that INEC is on course. And also we are supporting INEC and for INEC to deliver free, fair, and credible elections in all the parts of Nigeria tomorrow, because we will not want to have anything called staggered elections. We want to have free, fair, peaceful, and credible elections in all the states of Nigeria tomorrow. And we are supporting INEC full-time to ensure this. We are part of the process for free, fair, and credible process, and also elections. And also, it's also heartwarming to hear ASP talking about the strategies and the mechanism to ensure peaceful elections. Now we have had killings. Since this week, 5 people were killed in Cross River. People were killed in Ebonyi State. People have been killed in Kwara, in Delta, in Kano. And we are also asking the police to ensure that the people killing are arrested and also prosecuted. We know in the past, from our observation and reports, that because the people deployed, the police officers and security people deployed, especially the police officers, deployed in different states, are from different states. They are not domiciled in the state. They aside their policing duties, because they are not there when they arrest these thugs and election offenders. One of the reasons why they are not, those dogs were not prosecuted in the past, because the people who arrested them will quickly return to their base immediately after the elections, and they are not there to prosecute the people who committed these electoral offenses. And because they were not prosecuted in the past, it has emboldened them to commit the same offense yesterday, in the past also, and they might also want to commit the same offense tomorrow. So we also want to know the strategy that police is putting in place to say that enough is enough. Anybody that commits electoral offense tomorrow or on the 9th of March, year 2019, will be arrested according to ASP, and they investigated and prosecuted adequately, and ensure that that they are punished according to law to deter others from doing that moving forward. And we also know that the law did not give the military power to participate in the elections. So we are not expecting to see the military near polling units. We don't bother seeing them in the borders, but having a role for them is not, we are not expecting to see that tomorrow and on the night. So we are supporting the security personnel, agencies and agents to carry out their duty, their role, very duty-free, non-partisan. They should not, because we know in the past that the police has always worked on security agencies for the government in power. It's not only with this government, but we are employing them tomorrow. That Nigeria is bigger than us, and Nigeria has to come first for the observers. And he forgot to mention that observers are free to go about their observation tomorrow. Maybe
observers are accredited, so yes. They couldn't possibly be observing the elections in the comfort of their private lounges. Well, thanks a lot. Let's pause you in the meantime. And Assistant Commissioner of Police, Frank Umba, was smiling each time you refer to him as ASP. That will be several rungs below his current rank. No, that's okay. I think it's noted. It's noted. Let's go over to Lagos Network Center, where we have kept Dr. Abiola Afolabi-Akinode on hold. Of course, she's a regular on Good Morning Nigeria, and she's of the Transition Monitoring Group. Dr. Afolabi-Akinode, now, again, just to back up a bit, the chief reason for the rescheduling of the elections had to do with logistic and operational challenges. And all week, attention has been on those key issues, how to overcome the logistic and operational challenges that the election management body encountered in the course of kicking off the polls last week. We are getting assurances now that all is well. Bello here says that they are good to go. Now, from your veteran position as an election observer, as a monitor of the electoral process, What else should be of concern to us as we approach the 0 hour? And without being pessimistic, what else could possibly go wrong, and how do we mitigate this?
I think, given what my colleague Maudi had said, observers too, since last Saturday, after the cancellation, we have also ensured that we've been observing and monitoring the processes. As at yesterday, I was actually in Ogun State, where I also met with the REC, also to see how far they have gone, to ensure that things are in place. Having said that, there are issues that are pre-election logistic issues, and there are also issues that could be logistical on the day of elections. And I think it's important for us to put both issues in context. What happened last week was more or less some logistic and operational issues that are expected, to have, been addressed before the elections, and which were not addressed, which led to the cancellation, which are issues that we had called at a point in time for an audit, a review, because it's gradually becoming a pattern, so that we don't fall into that kind of situation again. And be that as it may, that has gone. But there are also some unforeseeable circumstances that you find on election day that are oftentimes are also, they allude to them as issues of logistics. For example, the transportation that has been arranged, to bring ballot papers and personnel, to election, to the polling units, don't show up or don't arrive on time, or on their way to the polling units have one problem or the other, So there are also some other kind of logistical problems like that. And from like past elections, we also get there and you see that the ad hoc staff that is supposed to operate the card reader does not have enough capacity to do it, or even in terms of capacity to ensure that they do what they're supposed to do in terms of processes. What should be done first, what should be done second, and all of that. Then you find the whole place rowdy, voters trying to tell them what to do and all of that. So we've seen such circumstances. But one of the things that had come from the off-season elections, which I think it's an innovation from INEC, they now have people who go around from polling unit to polling unit, who are appointed monitors by INEC, who can come also and try to resolve some minor logistical problems that can occur at the polling unit. So we do expect that, there will be a lot of that around, because if you look at what has happened in the last 1 week, any small or minor logistical problem could eat up the polity. So we're expecting that INEC had assured us once again, and we believe them, that things will go well on Saturday. And we could also see the writings on the wall in terms of some of the things that they have done. We have observers across the 36 states of the Federation, plus FCT. And we have also been taking reports from them to observe what have been going on in different states to see whether INEC actually is ready, for the elections. And from what we are getting from them, we are quite encouraged that we are moving close, to it. Now, it looks to me also that in terms of security, there's also been a lot of information out there, and I want to also give kudos to police. I think we have also used that 1 week to build on issues that we have not done enough, as a country before last Saturday. With some of the reports we're also getting, a lot of the states coordinators are sending out information. There's a joint security task force in different states, and they have rolled out their hotlines that you can call should in case that you have problems. So people already have numbers for commissioner of police, people that are responsible to ensure that the election, goes on well. So I think that we are gradually moving to what it should be, an ideal election.
Right, Dr. Abiola Akioda Afolabi, we appreciate your comments. And Kingsley, her attire this morning shows that she's already in
on the field. Yeah. Incidentally, we had her in the Abuja studios last week ahead of the Bosch.
But I think she also raised very salient points, and that has to do with the capacity of ad hoc staff employed by INEC with respect to the issue of handling the card reader, which is a gadget that may become dysfunctional all of a sudden. All right, and how do they handle it if such occurs? Well, of course, we know INEC has made provisions for such occurrences. We will come to you.
And more importantly, I mean, without seeking to re-echo what he just said, but look, it is when such glitches occur that the voters who are already massed around the polling station will be given instructions. No, press that one. No, not the other one. The other one you should press. And before you know it, people get impatient. But the INEC Deputy Director is still here with us. He will have the opportunity of responding. These are concerns. So look, how do you mitigate them on election day? Kyria, we have a number of tweets that have come in already from our viewers. Let's begin to take those tweets before we go on a short break.
Okay, now Law Alpha C says we pray that INEC redeems its image by tidying up all that are required to conduct the elections and prove detractors wrong at last. The security agencies should complement the efforts of the present administration to ensure free, fair, and peaceful elections by being neutral.
Festus Akimboyewa said, INEC chairman has assured Nigerians that Saturday's election will hold if an act of God doesn't intervene. I urge INEC to make the voting easier on Saturday by ensuring that materials get to the polling units early so that voting can commence.
Now, Mike Ayakwo says, every disappointment, they say, is a blessing. Let what happened last Saturday be a big blessing to Nigeria in terms of a free and fair elections never witnessed in our history. God will do it for us. Fellow Nigerians, let's go out and vote candidates of our choice. Our votes count.
This is from Josh. It says, Nigerians are hoping that INEC will not change the game for us again at the 11th hour.
Okay, now, Dr. Solomon, the work-free day is to enable citizens to return to their polling units for the rescheduled presidential and National Assembly elections. Nigerians should take advantage of this gesture from federal government to do the necessary thing, that is, voting only. This is because their vote must count.
Sani Michael Makoji, we hope that after midnight today, INEC would not make another announcement. That would be devastating and discouraging. Please, if there's going to be anything of such, they should make that announcement before noon today, Friday.
Now, Cure My Nation says, I believe the postponement has given INEC enough time to re-strategize in order to have hitch-free elections. I urge INEC to monitor every material distributed to various zones with hefty and sincere security personnel. May God cure my nation.
Babagana Makinta tweets, I would like to know how certain INEC is about tomorrow's election. This is to avoid further financial costs, as happened last week.
Innocent Yawal James, all we need is a transparent and credible election, despite the unforeseen challenges claimed by INEC, which is now addressed. Security agencies should be taught on why they are deployed so as to know their roles.
And he adds, that's Innocent Yawal James, that security agencies should protect the smooth process of the election before and after. That's what Nigerians want.
Now, Law Alpha, Nigerians cannot afford to be disappointed again by INEC this time around. So the onus is on the umpire to deliver now or never.
Delay Jack Solomon. Now, just today to the rescheduled elections, we need to remind INEC and other stakeholders that all that we need is free, fair election that will appeal to all. Nothing less. Good luck to Nigerians as they go cast their votes.
Well, Kingsley, we have a litany of tweets here because Nigerians are very interested in what is going on. And
let's jump to Mutana Farouk.
Yes, because we have read from Delta Solomon, we have read from Mike Ayakwo. Let's give others a chance.
That's right.
Now, Mutana Farouk says, conducting an election ought to have been ordinarily sympathico poll. Well, I hope I understand what he meant there. But it is unfortunate that some unpatriotic elements perceive an election as a syndrome of do or die. I urge all Nigerians to play their civic roles as the INEC requires maximum cooperation from all of us.
Yeah. Now, Bubar Omar tweets, Nigerians, the issue is very simple. We are the ones making it difficult. Go out and cast your vote for the candidate of your choice. Wait for the outcome if you wish, but don't move any ballot box.
Okay, now Mustafa Bukar Kolo, he says, most of the masses, well, the masses don't know that it is only through voting or participating that you would have a say or change in the government. And voting is almost a mandatory action for each and every citizen of a country. God bless our beloved country.
Shakiro tweets, mistakes do not repeat themselves from one who has sincerity of purpose and who has previously admitted and apologized for his mistakes. We must agree with INEC's preparedness and we should go out and vote.
Now, Ilya John Bobai, from the reports, I just hope and pray that elections will not commence late in the various polling units due to late arrival of sensitive materials and non-sensitive ones as well. May God bless the federal government, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Mohammed Mustafa, everything is going smoothly as we are seeing this morning. That's from our reports with regards to the distribution of materials so far.
I think we have also read from Mustafa Abubakar Kolo.
That's right, Kirian. So those are the tweets that we'll take in the meantime. We will take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll still have our guests in Lagos and 3 of them with us here in the Abuja studios. That will be after this break.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Dabaden and Ishat Modibokau. Now, this edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency Conference. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, let's return to our guests in the Abuja studios. Just before we bring in the INEC Deputy Director in charge of voter education and publicity, I'd like ACP Frank Uba, who is Force Public Relations Officer, to speak again to a question that I asked last week. You recall, we're talking about the presence of fake security officers on duty. Let's say in this case, policemen. Those who would procure uniforms, and ordinarily they are not policemen. This week, there have been reports of some persons who have been arrested. I've been trying to figure out in which of the states now, where vehicles, I think it must be somewhere in Akwa Ibom or so, where vehicles similar to those that the police now use were being resprayed into police colors, apparently for use on election day. How, once again, will the members of the public assist you to help fish out such fake police officers? And how should members of the public respond to such fake security officers who are on duty? Because these are the kind of things that are likely to spark, some uproar, as you very well know, depending on what the officers are doing.
First of all, let me say this. We have a very strong working relationship with INEC. And if you did listen to the INEC chairman yesterday, he equally reiterated the fact that every single police officer or any personnel of any of the other security agencies that will be deployed to the polling booths will have their names, their force numbers, as well as their phone numbers turned into INEC. by the relevant agency. So, for example, if there is a polling center or a polling booth in front of NTA headquarters, and we're deploying 3 personnel there, or we're deploying 1 policeman or 2 policemen with 1 personnel of the civil defense, we will turn in their details to the INEC official in charge of the poll. He will have their names, he will have their first numbers, as the case may be, or AP number, and then he will have their phone numbers. We will officially communicate that to the INEC official. So any other person that falls outside that list, of course, the INEC official instantly knows that something is wrong, and the person that's a red flag, and we expect the INEC official to report instantly. And for us as police personnel, we've also said that we'll also be having a special tag for them. Beyond these key arrangements, we're also having roving officers that will be going around. The truth is, most people that are not police officers or soldiers or personnel of the regular security agencies, if we see them, we know them. And because we'll be actively looking out for them, both by our operatives who are deployed overtly and by operatives who are deployed covertly, we want to believe very strongly that they can't have any space to operate. So if there's any politician out there, or if there's any unscrupulous Nigerian out there who is thinking or making plans to deploy fake policemen or fake soldiers or fake operatives from any other security agency, the person is doing so at his or her own peril. We will track the person, we will identify the person, we will arrest the person, and will make the person pay dearly for those offenses. Because we will take the person through the whole gamut of the law, I will make the person to pay, will make the person, will bring the full weight of the law to bear on such offenders. And I think Nigerians don't have to panic about that, because we'll be on ground. The Inspector General of Police himself will be out tomorrow. Every single police officer in Nigeria, our colleagues from other sister security agencies, we will all be out tomorrow. And I don't think any single individual can stand our collective will as a people.
Okay, well spoken, but that question from Kingsley is very apt, because in the months preceding, February, we've also had some, cases of people being arrested for having dozens of police or military uniforms.
The good thing is this: those arrests are not being done by police officers from Ghana. These arrests you are alluding to are not being done by police officers from Burkina Faso or police officers from India or Great Britain. We are the ones doing those arrests. And that should send a message to you. That should tell you that we know our onions. We know what we're looking out for. We've done our threat analysis. We have intelligence operatives out there sending us reports every day. You should know that a lot of those arrests were predicated upon raids that we carried out. Those raids were intelligence-driven. They were purposeful. They were target-oriented. We know what we were looking for. We went after what we were looking for. We got what we were looking for.
Okay, now that's good assurances from you against tomorrow. So now let's come to Bello before we go to Lagos once again, because Bello is of the INEC voter education and publicity. Well, there are some comments made by the two observers we have here, Mma and Biola, and that has to do with the competence of the ad hoc staff that INEC has hired. Well, in the case of a dysfunctional gadget, on an election day, do they have the capacity to manage the crisis and yet allowing the balloting to continue? That's a very big question. Another one is the fact that you have already told us that all other arrangements have been made with regards to the logistic reasons that led to the cancellation of last week's election. Now, we want to hear from you again as you speak to us on these two issues.
Let me first of all start with the issue of card reader and remind our audience that within this 1 week, having trained all our ad hoc staff for the election that did not hold on the 16th, a key activity that was part of the activities laid out for this week was the retraining of this ad hoc staff. The retraining has more to do with card reader, just a refresher training, which was conducted already. Another thing is, should card reader fail to work, and if for any reason we are not able to replace it before 2 p.m., if that election in that polling unit will be postponed till the following day. So there are adequate measures to guarantee that polls happen as scheduled and on schedule. So it is not an issue of our personnel don't have the capacity. They do. They have been trained. And it's not just any person that turn up for training that we recruit. It is after due selection. The selection process was rigorous. You train them. You now test them. And you select the ones that you found competent for the jobs. That's how they were trained. And remember also, all of those that are to man the polls in the capacity of presiding officers are NYSC personnel, meaning they have had the prerequisite knowledge of how to operate a smart card reader, which is the key thing for this election. I don't foresee any lapse at the moment, but should something arise within the day, the monitoring system on ground, the supervisory system put in place by INEC, and the collaboration within the system will definitely flag off all errors or all issues for immediate remedy.
Okay, Aliu Bello, thank you very much. Let's go very quickly to Lagos. Dr. Abiola Akiode Afolabi, I'm sure you'll listen to the reassurances by the first public relations officer with regard to what the security agencies will be doing, and the police, of course, is the lead agency in providing security for the elections. But we do know, as part of the lead up to the elections, that there are a few states that should be on the watch. I mean, we're talking about Kano, Kaduna, Rivers, Zamfara, Ogun, Imo, Anambra, Ebonyi, and Kwara. I mean, for all kinds of reasons. We have seen in the last few days, for instance, persons massing around the INEC office in Port Harcourt, which is in Rivers. From your perspective, what more would you like to see the security agencies do in some of these states that have named?
Well, I think that we have gotten a lot of assurances from security agents, INEC, and I'm sure Nigerians are going to also hold them accountable to it. We expect them to be very neutral, and also because there's a perception, particularly coming from Osun election, which was the last off-season election, that the security agents are not neutral. So this is an opportunity for them to redeem that image that they're actually, in the real sense, neutral, and they are not in any way political, and they are not getting the bidding from anybody in government. So there are lots of expectation from them, because the kind of peace that we are looking at is something that they can help in terms of ensuring that we have, as Nigerians, they are already trained, they know what to do to ensure that they also help in terms of preventing and also arresting when there is a problem. One of my own major concerns is that for off-season election, it might be easy to bring 22,000 police and security personnel, to watch the elections. But with the one happening with in 36 states plus the FCT, it might actually be a huge burden, on security agents. And that's why I think that one of the things that we need to do, and which we have all been doing, before the election, is try to talk more about prevention, so that it doesn't happen. Yes, it's already, we could see and that's also the benefits of the research and analysis that are taking place before the election, so that it will help in terms of concentrating in some places where we think are places that we may likely have some problems. And we could see some of them, and we can also see, what has been happening even within the last 1 week. But one other thing which I also want to hinge upon is also that the political gladiators or political elites should try as much as possible not to eat up the polity. They have the followers, and they know it's the instruction that they give to the followers that the followers, follow. So they should try as much as possible to understand that the country is very fragile, and there are a lot of things happening, around, and it's quite heated up. So they have a responsibility, to call their followers to order. And of course, for police and other security agents, it's like Boy Scouts. We must be prepared. So let everyone just be ready so that nothing happens, because it's important for us as Nigerians to move into this election, without any problem. So we need that assurance, we need that confidence, from the security agents, from INEC itself, so that the current INEC chair is a man of history. And so tomorrow should actually really further affirm him as a man of history, so that election, comes clean, clear, without any form of insinuation, or that can affect the perception of people about what we all know. What are the principle of credible elections? It must be inclusive. So we don't want to have an election whereby, like what we saw in some off-season elections, where people were prevented even from getting to the place where they are going to vote. By implication, what that will do is to disenfranchise as many people as possible. We don't want to have an election that is not transparent, that people don't know what the processes are. There are rules of the game. When you get to an election space, there are things you expect INEC to inform the people. We hope that they will be able to go through all those processes so that the election can come out transparent, inclusive, in a manner that can be adjudged as credible. The whole world is looking at us, so it's important for us to ensure that we do what is right to make this election a history for us as a country.
Yeah, well spoken, Dr. Abiola Akeode Afalabi. We appreciate your contribution this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, and we thank you for doing so. We earlier observed that you're already in election mode. We know you're going to be very active tomorrow. We will likely see you again next week for further analysis on the post-election. Thank you indeed for being part of us this morning. Yeah, Maudi, let's get your final comments as we conclude this program. All right, just make it brief. You've listened to every comment made now, including that of Dr. Abiola. What's your take? Okay, my
Parting comment is that our hopes are very high and we have so much confidence in INEC that they will do the talking. They have told us that they are ready now, and we believe them that they are going to give us free, fair, and credible elections. And also, we have high hopes in the area of the security agencies, especially the police. There is new man in the saddle now, and they have told us that they are out to ensure peaceful elections, and we are believing them. But we just want to ask to pray for them, and also to ask them to ensure that what they have told us is what is on ground tomorrow and on the night. We also asking all the stakeholders, especially political parties and candidates, to put Nigeria first.
All right.
And also the voters, it is your constitutional right to go and vote. We have begged you enough. We are telling you, you are not doing anybody a favor. If you do not vote, you have given away your rights. That's the only way you can participate in governance.
General Secretary, Alliance for Credible Elections, would like to thank you very much for your contribution to our discussion this morning. Lastly, and very briefly, Aliyu Bello, Deputy Director, Publicity, INEC, who has a right to be present at the vote collation center?
All of those that are accredited to be, including the observer groups, the media, in addition to the main actors, which are the voters and the poll officials.
Okay, Kingsley.
Vote Collation Center, party agents.
Party agents and the collation officers.
All right, on that note, we'd like to thank you, Ali Bello, INEC Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity. We hope to see you sometime next week for post-election analysis. Thank you indeed. And of course, ACP Frank Mba, First Public Relations Officer, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And of course, we're also going to talk to you after the elections, for us to do analysis of how your men were able to handle the election this year. Thank you indeed for coming.
It's always a pleasure.
All right, now let's see what weather looks like for the rest of the day.
Join us on the weather forecast. Presently, we're experiencing good horizontal visibility across the country, and this should enhance free movement for as many that intend traveling to cast their votes. And to the weather forecast, increased cloudiness is expected over the coastal region, with partly cloudy skies over the inland areas of the south and parts of Lokoja, Ilorin, and Makurdi axis, while the northern and central region should be sunny and hazy throughout the forecast period. Thunderstorms activities are anticipated in the afternoon hours over Lagos, Port Harcourt, Calabar, Yenegua, Enugu, and Owerri axis in the afternoon hours, while residents of the north are expected to still watch out for sunny and hazy conditions. And that's where we conclude the weather forecast.
Well, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, on the eve of 2019 general elections in Nigeria. We'll see you again on Monday. I am Kirian. Am I asking you to please go out there and cast your ballot?
And I'm Kingsley Osalolo. I join Kirian in thanking you for being with us. And of course, do not forget that elections will come and go, but this great country of ours, Nigeria, will remain. So please treat Nigeria very tenderly by making the elections peaceful and agreeable. Do have a lovely day and a lovely weekend ahead.